Yo, what is up, Rover Sports? Coming back at you again with a video today on college football, SEC coaches. So I'm going to do this one on Jimbo. I already did Coach O. I'm going to list Texas A&M, the Aggies, what they got coming back, and what the hell's going to happen in College Station. I think that Jimbo Fisher is one of the craziest hires of the entire offseason. Jimbo leaves for a stacked pile of cash. I think he's making maybe $9 million. Let's see what Jimbo's making down at Texas A&M. The contract of Mr. Jimbo Fisher, 10 years, $75 million for the Jimbo man. Jimbo's ex-wife was hot as shit, by the way. Really attractive, and in all seriousness, feel bad about that whole situation. But Jimbo Fisher, other than that, I mean, he's a smug dude. He kind of left Florida State by the wayside, the whole Christmas tree in the front yard deal. He was supposed to be the heir apparent to Bobby Bowden, and instead he decided to completely leave the situation of Florida State. Now, here's the thing about Florida State. They have talent, yes, but they also are undisciplined as shit. Guys get arrested all the time at Florida State. It is not the highest quality organization of players, okay? They're not molding these guys into young men that could go out in the communities and be great people. At Florida State, you know, with Jimbo Fisher, it was undisciplined. It was chaos. It was wild, and that's always what kind of Florida State has been like. But the thing about Florida State is that they didn't mold these guys into young men. They would take guys with character issues. If you had talent, you played at Florida State. And the thing about Florida State, yes, you had some good ones. Derwin James, Jameis Winston, Nick O'Leary, Rashad Green, Dalvin Cook, as I mentioned. Listen, incredible, very, very, very good football players at Florida State. Guys that can come in there, defensive linemen, elite level recruiting, but the style of the organization with Jimbo Fisher was one in which basically when Jameis Winston left, Jameis was a generational talent, all right? So with Jameis, they had that great year where they went and won the last national championship of the BCS, and they played great against Auburn, and Jameis had the game-winning drive, and they ended up beating Auburn there to win their championship. The next year, Florida State was the 4th seed in the playoff, and they were lucky as shit to even get into the playoff. They sucked all year. They escaped because Jameis Winston was great at the end of ball games, and really the ACC was really down over that time. I don't think that that Petrino was at Louisville that long. Definitely Fuente was not at Virginia Tech. They still had their old football coach down there at Virginia Tech, Frank Beamer, for the longest of times. And you look at Duke now. Duke was okay back then, but here you go. I mean, Florida State, they don't play, I don't believe, they do play Clemson every year. Boston College is not very good. Syracuse and Wake Forest, those are trash. Those teams are trash. So people want to argue that the ACC is better than the SEC. Half the teams in the damn ACC are complete trash when it comes to actually playing the games of football. Listen, Florida State gets 3 guaranteed wins. They get Wake Forest, they get Syracuse. I get Dino is a better coach, Dino Babers now, but Syracuse was a damn joke ever since McNabb left Syracuse. They play in a freaking dome in the middle of New York. It's a joke of a football team. Boston College sucks. No offense ever. You had Luke Kuechly one freaking year. North Carolina State, Syracuse, NC State's a good football team. Wake Forest is absolutely pitiful at football. They're getting a little bit better. That's what ACC homers will say. But here's the thing about Jimbo. I don't believe in Jimbo that much. With Kevin Sumlin, okay, that team was good on the offensive side of the ball. That team recruited really well with Sumlin, but there was no discipline either. By the second half of the season, those players were weak-minded and they quit, and the conditioning program was a pile of hot shit. It sucked, the conditioning program. So by the time they played the meat of the SEC West, they shot their load too early. And basically, they had no energy to go out and perform the rest of the second half of the SEC schedule. They would lose every year to Ole Miss. They would lose to Mississippi State sometimes. But LSU would lose to Alabama, or Texas A&M would lose to Alabama every single November. So when you look at LSU, or when you look at Texas A&M as a football team, they play in the SEC West, the hardest division in all of football. And Jimbo Fisher is a guy that at Florida State, he was a guy that lucked out in having Jameis Winston, and he basically does not know how to coach defense all that well. He is very, very overrated. He is more of a name than he is substance, and I don't believe he's going to do well at Texas A&M because they're going to have to go against Arkansas with Chad Morris, who's just as developed as Jimbo is. They're going to have to go against Gus Malzahn, Chad Morris, guys that are smart guys. You're going to have to go against Saban. LSU is going to have some talent. Joe Moorhead is a big-time football coach. There are no easy wins. And then Mississippi, Ole Miss, even though Matt Luke and Phil Lonzo might not be the best from an X's and O's standpoint, Mississippi still gets really good in-state talent, and their skill position players now with A.J. Brown, DeKalen Metcalf, they really have actually great talent on Ole Miss's football team. So even though Ole Miss is going to be the worst team in the SEC West for a long time, you still have to play the SEC West gauntlet. And then what is the crossover game for Texas A&M? Let me go ahead and figure that one out. The crossover game for Texas A&M in the SEC. That's going to be somewhat interesting. Let's see their schedule here, the crossover game. And then this year, they have Nick Starkel. They have a pretty good quarterback. I don't know if Kentucky's, their crossover game every year is USC. So they play USC every single year as their crossover game. And USC is also getting better. Will Muschamp is getting better as a head coach every single year. They're recruiting really well down in Columbia right now, and they have good offensive players. Bobby Bentley's a really good recruiter. Bentley's a guy that honestly a lot of people dislike because they believe that he just is funneling in his sons to play quarterbacks at South Carolina. But I don't believe in Jimbo Fisher. I believe Jimbo Fisher's an 8-win coach. I believe Texas A&M fans are delusional, one of the most delusional fan bases in the entire country and in the entire SEC, because they expect every year to get 10 wins just because they have boosters that are very rich oil donors. I don't believe that Texas A&M should be a 10 or 11 win team every year. They've never done it. They have one of the weakest traditions in the entire country. And you look at, yes, Kyle Fields beautiful. Yes, they had Johnny Manziel. But the fact is they want a coach that's going to come in there and win 9, 10, 11 games. And I don't know if Jimbo's going to be able to live up to that hype. I still believe there's going to be a lot of inconsistent years. Jimbo has to recruit a quarterback that is going to be very, very good. But overall, when you compare Jimbo to the elites of college football, when you compare him to Tom Herman, when you compare him to P.J. Fleck, when you compare him to guys like Scott Frost, Dan Mullen, he is nowhere close to Chad Morris or those guys that I've mentioned. He now has a cushy job again. He had the cushiest job at Florida State where he gets to handpick everybody, and now he is at Texas A&M. And will Jimbo Fisher at A&M, will he continue to develop talent and get that talent in Texas? Maybe he can. But again, at Florida State, it was an undisciplined program. Very undisciplined in terms of the program. And will he get Texas A&M to be consistent? That's the thing I want to know. And Jimbo defensively, I have no idea what he's going to do there at all. I'm curious. I don't believe in Jimbo from a motivational standpoint. I think that he's only friends with the quarterback. And will he develop relationships? And will he change the culture and make them a 10, 11 win dominant team? He's not going to be worth the money. He isn't beating Saban. I don't believe he's beating LSU and Moorhead. overrated. I don't believe he's beating Auburn, and then I certainly don't think he's beating Georgia and Florida. I would be shocked if A&M wins the SEC in the next 7 years. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that these coaches in the SEC are too good. It's too damn competitive. I don't believe that Jimbo is going to win the SEC for the next 7 years. I don't think he will live up to the expectation, but we shall see. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and enjoy this Sunday. Enjoy the NBA Finals. Enjoy June a little bit, and have fun. Take care,